Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Glenny, how are you this morning?
Mikey, good morning, man. It's great to have coffee with you. I always love having coffee with you.
It's good stuff I'm excited about today. We're talking about step one. This is good.
Sober.Coffee.
First step, my friend.
Step one, man. That's I'm looking forward to digging in.
Right. So step one, as I read, it says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. That's a loaded sentence right there.
Yeah, one of the things as we dig into these steps is, I really learned the value of words, right? And, part of my surrender story is, I surrendered to the words, and normally my ego says, well, they used the wrong word there, or that doesn't apply to me. But part of my surrender says, hey, I look at the words and I absorb them as they're written. And one of the first words that pop out is the word we.
Right.
This is no longer an I program. This is a we program.
Right. I don't know how that plays out, but isn't in the 12 steps, I mean, the words we, us, and our, it's got to be 15 plus times, right?
Totally.
So it's not nowhere in there does it say I.
Yeah, and a couple other words. One is admitted, right?
Admitted, right.
Sometimes, external forces, spouses, bosses, force issues down on us, right? Say, Mikey, you have a problem with drinking, right? But that's one force. But, for us to say, hey, we admit it, right? The word admitted's key. Then you look at the word powerless.
Right.
It's so hard for me because throughout life is you're
in control. I'm in control.
You're a fixer. You know, people come to you to fix things, right? So now all of a sudden for you to say you're powerless.
That's right.
Well, that's tough.
Yeah, totally foreign.
And then lives have become unmanageable.
Can we call it an understatement right there?
So I think we have redefined that word.
Yeah, right.
Chaos. The word hell, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of words that we can use to describe unmanageability. But
I think I managed my repossession of my car pretty well.
Yeah, I'm sure you did, man. So some would say that's unmanageable, right? That you're not managing things very well.
My wife would agree.
Yeah, so again, with our Sober.Coffees, we're going to break down step one and just talk about, experience,
right,
strength, and hope, right?
Right.
And so, if you want a reference to, our deeper dive stories, you can go back in the podcast library and see Mike's story and my story, kind of dives in deeper to the experience side of it.
Well, I look
a little more behind the counter there, Mike.
A little more behind the counter. I'm sipping on my my double latte today.
Nice.
Oh yeah. So yeah, experience. I think that before. Well, it's funny, Glenn, because I knew I had a problem with alcohol for a long time. So this word admit really does jump off because I said it a lot. I knew it in the back of my head, but I never really took myself to that level of honesty to admit that I really, really, really was powerless over alcohol. I mean, I didn't take it to that level because I didn't want to believe it. I think that was my problem. I didn't want to believe it. Even though I knew it, I didn't want to believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't... You'd have to be an idiot to look at my story, right? And say, I would have to be an idiot to say, hey, I don't have a problem with alcohol, right? That I have control over this. I mean, I have so many examples, So I didn't have a hard time admitting that I was powerless over alcohol. In fact, I got to the point where the only way I could stop was going to a hospital, going to a detox center. I could not stop on my own, could not physically stop. The shakes were too bad. I mean, I had to get help. So, I kind of realized that, right? And then the word unmanageable, I mean, yeah, I mean, I was just in a cycle. I mean, I knew my life was unmanageable, you know. But for me, it was progressive, right? You know, if I'm at level 100, you know, everything's doing great in life and everything's flying great. And now all of a sudden, I'm at level 5, right? I would never go from 100 to 5 in one day.
Right.
You know, it's like they say about the frog being boiled, right? If you put a frog in a boiling pot of water, he's not going to die because he's going to pop right out, right? He doesn't want that heat. But the way to boil a frog is turn the degree up 1 degree a day, right? So he doesn't really know it. And that's how I look at my path of alcoholism is progressively got worse every single day, every month. It just kept getting worse until I hit the bottom.
Right. See, and in my journey as well, I found that my level of deceit, self-deceit, went up a scale, went up a step every day, every instance, because I told myself, despite this evidence, I told myself that things weren't that bad. That guy over there, on it. That's right. Yeah, that guy over there had it a lot worse than I did, and I certainly was not out of control, and my life was not unmanageable. It was just I wasn't able to admit it. So my level of deceit, I just kept lying to myself to back myself into a corner of acceptance to my own problem.
Yeah, it's funny when you first use the word deceit. You know, I first thought, well, how do you lie to yourself, right? But the way you explained it was great. It's like it's not that my life has a problem, but compared to the guy that's under the bridge, drinking out of a you actually drink out of a bagged bottle, but that it's not that bad. So hey, I'm doing okay, right.
Right. I looked at the other frog, and back to your frog analogy, I just told myself the water wasn't that hot. Right. Even though it was boiling my feet, I told myself the water wasn't that hot. It was 73 degrees.
Now I understand your use of the word deceit.
Yeah, right. And that, to me anyway, that led to stress, and the stress that I had to carry to cover the deceitful web that I was weaving, it added a lot of undue stress in my life.
I mean, that's almost insanity, right? When just the mental power, as you just said, of juggling all the stories.
Sure.
Right? Of juggling a life, really overrun by alcohol, right? All your decisions are based on alcohol. All the stories. Who do I tell what to when? How do I manage this? How do I manage my level of, sobriety today or my hungoverness today? And for you, you were the chemical experiment, right? When you were down, you took stuff to bring you up.
Sure.
And when you're up,
took stuff to bring you down, right?
So, yeah, I think for me, I think, the way I, put it is, I was at a point in my life where I had everything I wanted, and probably more than I ever dreamed of, and then there was actually a time when, in a pouring rainstorm, I'm on the keys, I'm on my knees trying to find, coins in the bottom of my car to go to the bar and buy my next drink,
right?
And that's just
high tops, low bottoms.
Oh my gosh,
right.
So my life was unmanageable.
Right, absolutely. Okay, I concur. It was. So what did we do to flip it?
Yeah. So I mean, as we're sharing our story, the key for me was surrender. I mean, that was. I had to come to the point where I just said, look, Glenn's games don't work anymore. So many times I use the word, I've got this, right? And there was a time I was 13 months sober, and I'm at a conference in Colorado. I'm on a balcony, 7 days, great conference, just nailed it from a work standpoint. I'm on the balcony looking at the Rocky Mountains. And I remember I was on the phone with my sponsor, doing the right stuff. I'm on the phone with my sponsor, and I remember telling him, I've got this. And I drank all the way home.
Oh.
I mean, 13 months, and just another disastrous relapse, another hospitalization. So, I mean, I had to get to the point in 2014, where I said, I will do whatever you tell me to do. I just can't take that next drink.
Yeah, I had to get to the point where I needed a I needed a clear-cut plan because the plans that I had laid out weren't working, changing up what I drank, changing the people I drank with, etc. So I needed a new plan, and what the 12 steps introduced me to was a step-by-step journey to recovery if I bought into each step. And so, in the rehab I went to anyway, they parked on this first step for almost the full 30 days I was there. They say this is the one step you got to do right? And so I really had to park on it and own the statement that I was powerless over alcohol and that my life had become unmanageable. And until I could get past that, I couldn't proceed with my journey. And so, for me, it was process, if that makes sense, more than practice. I was willing to buy into a process that was proven, and they quickly introduced me to other people that had proven that this worked for them. And then I come and met you. And here we are doing coffees. But I met you, and you said, "Yeah, the process works, Mike." And the first step is key. No.
Yeah, and that takes me back to your story and kind of the first tool that you used, or first point of strength, which, I've shared before that for me, my entire life, when you asked for help, that was a weakness. When you ask for help, that meant that I can't do it. And I love being Superman. I love people and say, hey, everything Glenn touches turns to gold. I was proud of that.
Sure.
So for me to ask for help, so I'm really focusing on, the first thing that you did. Your step one.
Right.
The way I know your story.
Sure.
Is when you were at that table on that early that morning, and after another bender.
Yeah.
And you said the word help.
I gave up. I said the word help.
And it's so funny because so many of us, right, really struggle with step one, right? And some of it's words, right? Some of it's, hey, do we want to define ourselves as an alcoholic? And, people sit there and say, well, I don't really have a drinking problem. I might once in a while, right? Meanwhile, you're passed out drunk on the train, right? Or you're hungover at work for the 5th day in a row. Right,
or another relationship has failed, or another job opportunity has gone to the wayside, just because you weren't in the game.
Right. So the tools that we find for step one is to do step one, and then a second key is the word we.
Right.
Because
do it together.
Yeah. I always thought that I had to be the man with the plan, and then I quickly realized on step one, it's a we program. I no longer have to do it Glenn's way.
Right.
Glenn's way, I always flew the plane right into the side of the mountain.
Didn't work out well. Right.
So as we look at kind of the hope section, right? Okay. So now I admitted I was powerless over alcohol. I got enough proof, right? And I have enough proof that my life has become unmanageable.
Right.
Now what? Right. So step one is the one that says, hey, don't drink.
Right.
Right. And so for me, it was okay. I've got step one, but now what? Right. And that's where the rest of the 11 steps come in. That's where the promises come in. And my hope part of step one is looking at Mike, it's looking at Bob, it's looking at Jim, it's looking at Tim, and saying, those guys didn't drink yesterday.
Right.
If I do what they do, then I have hope that my life can get better, that I can learn how to live a new way of living that I don't need to drink to escape from.
That's right. So your hope is hope. Your hope is hope. For me, in step one, I find of like a freedom that has come once I took that responsibility off of my shoulders. right, and said, okay, it's not mine to fix anymore. My life had become unmanageable. I'm powerless. Me and somebody else can make this better. I found a new freedom. I found it very relieving from a stress standpoint. I found that it was something I had the energy to tackle because I wasn't tackling it on my own. And that's why I love how you pointed the word "we" out, because we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. So here we are having a coffee talking about how to get better, right?
Right.
If I were doing a coffee by myself, just with my ideas, it just wouldn't carry the same weight as it's carried for me in this program.
Man, that is so true. And, the hope I found was in the 12-step program.
Right.
I had tried many, many doctors, and I was frustrated with the doctors, and I'm sure we'll do some sessions on that. I was really frustrated with them because I had put so much hope.
Right.
I remember sitting in front of a panel of 10 PhDs, and they're like, "Glenn, we're going to figure out why you drink, and we're going to make it so you don't drink again." Right. And like I look back at that today, and I mock that. And I shouldn't, but I do. But I put so much hope. I remember walking out of that meeting saying, "Oh man, this mental pain, this addiction, this alcoholism is going to be solved, right? And I'm going to be able to live a life without alcohol." But failed. Right? I tried so many medicines. At one point I went into a rehab. I was on 11 different big meds, right? I put so much hope in when I went to the drugstore. Hey, this drug's going to help me this time,
right?
But I didn't see any concrete evidence in those different channels that it was working, right? I just heard words. I just heard, people's opinions. But when I stepped into the rooms of the 12-step program, I saw proof. I saw people saying, "Hey, I'm 2 years sober. I'm 5 years, 10 years, 12 years sober. I'm 30 days sober."
Sure.
I couldn't even imagine what that meant.
Right. And I'm sitting across the table from somebody who is providing that hope for me. And then I'll leave this coffee, and no doubt in my journey this week, I'm going to be having a coffee with somebody else, and maybe I'm a little hope to them. Yeah, I just love the way it passes through. The way it passes through.
It really, looking at our experience and then what we did, right? The tools that we used and the steps that we took, and then, things can be better.
Right. Got to take the first step, though, right? I mean, in any journey.
First step's really, really important. And it's the hardest.
It always is.
I mean, the first time you walk into those rooms.
Sure.
I mean, that is a hard task.
That's right.
But I think that's where the hope comes in that, hey, I'm going to do this because I want that.
That's right. And I want it.
I know you do, brother.
All right, man.
Always love having coffee with you, Mikey.
Yeah, Glenn, good stuff on step 1. We'll see you next week. We'll talk a little bit about step 2.
All right, love it.
All right, thanks,
Thanks,
man.
Mikey.
All right, bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.